Today I have a unique opportunity to process found film. And the film that I have is Kodak Verichrome pan film. Not just any Verichrome, it's 127. And it came out of a Bell & Howell electric eye. That camera is actually in the other room right now being redone. And I just need the backing paper for it so I can reshoot some 35mm through it. I will be developing it in this single roll Patterson tank system using Kodak chemicals of D76. I will push process it by one stop just because of its age. Most of the chemicals I'll be using is Kodak chemicals, and hopefully we get something out of it. I just want to at least see some pictures, hopefully some pictures from Ann Arbor from 1960, 1970, or 1950. And if even cars mainly. That's just my biggest thing because I'm a car guy. I really want to see cars in general. And so without further ado, I will be putting this film, I have to untape it because there was no expose. Here, if you want to see the before. But I have to tape it in order for it to stay shut while it was in transport over to my home. So I have to take it into the dark room, which is this room here. I've got to cover up the window, which is already covered. It's just a black, there's nothing but black on the other side of this. And I'm going to take it, put it in the container, and since I don't use a dark bag, I don't have to worry about it. Sadly, this camera does not have infrared or anything like that. Even if it did, I feel like it would always destroy the film. But I'm going to do that, and I will be back momentarily. So I'm back now, and that took a lot longer than I thought. Not only was the roll really crumply and very brittle, I dropped the development tank on my foot and it kind of cut me. So I'm going to get this tank in, put it on the table here, get the chemicals from outside, and then I've got two cameras set up. I've got a Sony CyberShot right here. I've got a JVC camera, which is a camcorder, a real authentic camcorder, not one of those DSLRs that we use or a mirrorless camera that we use for videos or vlogs. So without further ado, I'm going to go get the chemicals and I'll get started on that. So here we go. Okay, so what I'm first going to do is actually put on some gloves, just because you don't know these chemicals. These chemicals are actually pretty dangerous or hazardous to your hands. So I'm going to put on some gloves. And I'm not too worried about dust right now just because the film is so old. So I'm going to dry off these gloves. I'm not too worried about the dust though, because the dust on this old film, it really doesn't matter to me. I mean, it's not my film, it's found film, so it's not the biggest worry in the world to me. If it was something else that I was doing, maybe an assignment or something where it would involve me to be very careful with my film, yes, I would be much more particularly careful with it. So we're going to start by putting the D76 that I made on January 15th, 2019 into the development tank. Run that for 10 minutes. Put the lid on here. And then I'm going to agitate it for the first 30 seconds continuously. Agitation is dependent on who is developing the film. So some people use the stick. Some people shake it upside down to get the chemicals everywhere. And some people shake it like this to try and agitate it that way. But I do 30 seconds for the beginning, 30 seconds for the first half of the second portion of the 30 seconds, and then every other 30 seconds I will do a development. An agitation. Okay, so now that I've agitated it, I'm going to tap it twice on the countertop, relatively hard, just to let out the air bubbles in the tank. Because you don't want bubbles of air on your film once it's processed. Put some paper towel underneath it because I want to keep the countertop kind of nice and clean. Now we hit the second 30 second mark and I start agitating again for the next 30 seconds. Don't know why I'm saying 30 minutes, I'm sorry. Now that that time period is up, I'm going to tap it twice, let it sit on the counter for the next 30 seconds. I'm going to continue that until the next portion of this next step comes along. So now that I'm back, let me put my notes away. Now that the developer has been sat, I'm going to pour it back into the bottle. Now, some people say D76 can only be used once. I have not found that to be a problem with using it more than once. I've actually used D76 5 times before it starts to emit, have a problem. Normally when it starts to decolor a little bit, but there we go. And now I'm going to put in the stop bath. Be in there for 30 seconds. I'm going to put this in for 30 seconds, starting now. And then I'm going to agitate it throughout the whole process, throughout the whole time that the stop bath is inside. And I'm reusing the funnel because once the developer's in the tank, it's in the tube or whatever it's called, the bottle, it's safe from being destroyed. But after that, I use the stop bath. I put that in there using the same funnel. All right, now that the stop bath is good and complete, I'm going to pour the chemicals back inside of the container. For the next time that I use it. I've gotten pretty good life out of stop bath. Now to put in the fixer. The fixer will be in there for 10 minutes. And I'm obviously not being precise with this. But I'm going to put it in for 10 minutes, agitate for the first minute, and then agitate every 30 seconds. 1 liter of fixer is good for about 6 rolls. And then I dump it because it starts to decolorize, it starts to become all this huge old mess. But I'm going to continue with this and I'll be back, fast forward through this portion, and I'll be back for when I'm rinsing it out and cleaning it. I'm back. I've got about a minute left on the darkroom timer. I've got the fixer ready to be poured back. I've got my Kodak hypo clearing agent for both paper and film, but I gotta rinse it first before I put the clearing agent. So I'm gonna rinse it for a second with the regular tap water. I mean, I only use the diluted water when I'm going with photo flow, but I am going to finish up with the fixer inside, pour it back in the thing, because I can reuse fixer. That's one of those things you can use for a couple of times and then you can get rid of it. I think I explained that before I cut off, but I'm going to finish up with this and then pour in the Kodak hypo clearing agent. Pour the fixer back in. There shouldn't be any color change inside of that. And I'm going to rinse it for 30 seconds to a minute with regular tap water and a regular paste instead of that. That's a little much. And that there is about 30 seconds. And over the next 2 minutes or so, I'm going to put in the hypo clearing agent and let it sit in there for 2 minutes with agitation for the first minute and then agitating every 30 seconds for the next minute. So hypo clearing agent, 2 minutes on the clock, starts now. I think I broke something, honestly. Okay, now I let it sit for 30 seconds and then I agitate for the last 30 seconds before I do a water wash. And the water water wash will be about 20 minutes. I like to go 15 minutes under a nice stream of water. Let me move that out of the way. A nice stream of water that's not too harsh for the chemicals that are inside of the tank, as well as the film. You don't want to send it off its tracks. I've done that once. At this time, I like to set my timer to 12 minutes. I can open the top, evaluate my tank because I feel like I broke something. Nope. Pop out the film. Ooh, I've got very dark images. But let it run under some nice, not too cold water. And then in the other sink, I'm going to wash this here. So I'll be back when this is done, when it's done rinsing out. See if we actually have images on this aged old film. That's for sure. I'm following into the last minute of rinse. Ooh, too much. The last minute of rinsing. And I usually just let it sit to rinse. And then I let it sit for about a minute in photo flow while I get the drying hooked up. Because usually I like to leave the room and turn on the roof fan while the chemicals on the film are drying. Just so there's no dust, there's nothing in here. And I try and make sure it stays as dry and clean as possible. Alright, so now at this point in the day, I empty the film out. Then I grab some diluted water at this point, because diluted water causes it to not have any particles inside of it. Fill it up just to the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the PhotoFlow 200, which is a Kodak product. It's very concentrated. So what I do is I very carefully only drop one little bit of PhotoFlow in it, because it's so concentrated. And you just see that bubble? I hope you did. When you put that much PhotoFlow in, you don't want to put so much to the point where the film is not going to dry as it should. But what I do is I usually just shake it around for 30 seconds or so, and I let it sit and rest. And I will move the camera so you can see exactly how I hang the film to dry. Alright, so now that the negatives have been sitting in the PhotoFlow for about 30 to 40 seconds, I'm going to make sure there are no air bubbles inside of the tank. Careful. No air bubbles, so I don't want bubbles on my film. I'm going to pour the tank out with the PhotoFlow. And let's see if we actually have some images on this aged old film. Wow, that's some old film. I mean, look at how bad that is. Wow. Okay. Oh my gosh. We do have images. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. That was not supposed to happen. Hopefully that it's wet enough. Oh sheesh. Now I gotta re-clean it. Because that was, honestly, that was a fail. I did not mean to drop that film. Let me grab some PhotoFlow and retry that again. I'm glad these aren't actually people's negatives, or else I would take a little bit more care with them when I'm processing. But I'm gonna run it through PhotoFlow again. Just let it sit for a moment. And then I'm gonna hold it up. It's just so brittle. It just likes to keep folding itself, and it snapped back at me. But as you can probably see, there are images on here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, ooh, a car. Ooh, look like a Lincoln. These people were wealthy. I'm gonna hang it up right here on a corner of the film. And then I'm going to add a weight to keep it so it will dry evenly. So, trying to unroll it. It's so difficult. There we go, there's the bottom. Not touching the negs. Then I touch this to there. There we go. And then now it hangs to dry. So that is the process of how I developed 35mm 127 film. That doesn't go for 35 millimeter because I use a stainless steel tank instead of the Patterson tank system. So it's much different than how I would do 120 or 35 millimeter because I use different tank systems, I use chemicals that are different, and I make them seem a little better. But I mean, with this film, since I found this film, I'm not really going to take super care with it. I mean, honest, I'm not going to take super care with it. Otherwise, if it was my film or someone else's that I know, I'm going to take the most care I can when processing the film. So I'm going to turn on the fan on the roof and then let this hang to dry. I will post the pictures that were scanned from it so you can see the whole world, so the whole world can see what's on this roll of film. I'm glad you guys watched my how to develop 35 millimeter. Nope, we don't do 35 millimeter, we do 127, a defunct film format from the 60s. So, thank you for watching, and good night. I'm gonna go get some sleep.